What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be going through my overrated and underrated brawlers for this month in Brawl Stars, especially in ranked. And you've probably guessed it, my overrated. I have this love, well, actually not love-hate relationship, a hate relationship with Maisy. And again, I'm going to say, okay, she's overrated. She is overrated. And Bobby, I'm looking at you, okay? Bobby, I've got personal beef with you now. Personal beef. Seriously. Maisy is nowhere near the S tier, okay? People that are saying it, I'm perplexed, okay? I really am, because if Maisy was an S tier brawler, or even close to S tier, should be getting used literally everywhere, in every situation, should be dominating every single meta. And I know I'm seeing her a lot in NA, but NA is just ruled by tanks, and a lot of the time that has to come down to connection. It does, because a lot of players are from, of course, really like very parts of America, of course, like Canada as well, Mexico, etc. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot going on with the servers, so a lot of people play tanks, and that is just NA. If you guys don't know, metas do different a lot from different regions. I don't know why, it just happens because there's so many brawlers in the game. I guess that's what happens. I mean, they're kind of fairly similar, but there's always like some differences. Like, primarily, you know, NA have always been into tanks, you know, like APAC, they've mainly been into the sharpshooters and like more mechanical brawlers. They try and beat you with pure like aim and skill. And then EMEA is kind of like a mixture of everything. I know you might be saying I'm from EMEA, so I'm glazing. Well, EMEA have won the last 2 world finals, so they do have a lot of skill to back, you know, my points. I have a lot to back up with it. So anyway, Maisy, like, she's good, but I think she's B tier. Like, you've got to consider everything with a brawler. Like, Maisy, yeah, she can have pop-off moments and she can really dominate. But when you take everything into consideration, like I do with tier lists, you think of, like, how useful they are across the board. You know, can you play them everywhere? How limited are they in terms of brawlers? Like, how many counters do they have? How many brawlers do they, you know, etc., etc. There's a lot that goes into it. And whilst Maisy can be good in a lot of situations, which I give her credit for, in Brawl, she can be a good mid. In Hot Zone, she can be pretty good as well, in like dueling beetles and inside of like open business. But I just think the map pool and just the meta, like, there's just not as many brawlers as I would have thought that would have been good. Again, like, if you're a good player, you can definitely make it work with Maisy. You really can. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's just skill diff, or you'll be able to do better if you're just better at the game with Maisy. Well, there is that, but also, you know, bad players, they're not gonna juke out Maisy's shot, you know what I mean? They're just going to get hit by all of these shots. Like, in this game, they were just barely moving and barely juking. I was just hitting every single shot. So, of course, it's going to look better against bad players in ranked, etc. But the good players, especially that are on really good internet connection, like are watching EMEA scrims or match arenas, they don't really have problems with Maisy unless it's like Pinball Dreams, which is literally her best map. So, what I'm trying to say, she's definitely overrated. She's nowhere near the S tier. She's good. On some maps, she's S tier, but overall, just definitely in a B tier. Guys, jumping into the second overrated brawler on the list, I've gone for Ash. So this is just my personal opinion. I'm kind of mixing all things into consideration, like community feedback, like what pros think, and what I think. I think Ash is a little bit overrated. So the reason why I'm saying this is just because, again, I kind of considered him maybe to be like an S tier brawler when he first got that hypercharge, and then I definitely thought like he was a really meta brawler, and as time has gone on, I just feel like there's still a little bit too much for him in the meta. And at least like with other tanks and assassins, like they have ways to kind of beat their matchups with gadgets and stuff. Like Ash, he really depends on just purely getting that matchup. I know his super and gadget can really help against some tough matchups, but in general, like other tanks, they have the tank trait, right? That can build up their super for free and can build up the hypercharge for free. Whilst Ash, if he has a bad matchup or players are just really disciplined, it's going to be like impossible to build up his hypercharge. So you can see here, I've got a decent matchup because there's a Penny and there's a Janet, which just really lack the DPS. So I know I'm an idiot here for throwing super onto a Penny, but that's just how things go. Janet's actually really annoying. Like, Janet lacks the DPS, but I just can't get close enough to her. You get what I mean? Like, the good Janet can just cycle supers, and there's nothing I can do. So I'm gonna just push up this way instead. You know, let my teammates just get destroyed. This Janet was destroying me in the second round, so I'm just gonna ignore her. As I said, let my teammates kind of do their thing. And now, we're in a good position. I mean, they know I'm here, but do they know I'm right here? That is the question. Right here, let's pop the hypercharge, although it's probably going to get destroyed by the Penny, but Penny's going to get destroyed by me. And then we can finally make it out. I mean, Squeak has all the gems here, so it doesn't even matter if I die, so I may as well just go in. Pop my gadget there after the super to rage me back up and heal me back up. Again, it doesn't really matter if I die, as long as this Squeak, yeah, gets away from this Janet, and we're all good. So, again, I'm not saying he's a terrible brawler. Maybe your guys' opinion on Overrated is a little bit differently, but I just think, personally, I overrated him because I only really see him as a last pick when you have a really good outdraft. Like, for example, if there's multiple low DPS brawlers in the composition, like here, like Penny and Janet, I knew I could at least push up. And that's where he's already good, Brawl Ball and Gem Grab, and I still think he's easily countable. So I think he's maybe even B tier, to be honest. I think I overrated him. Let's hop into the last one. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the final overrated brawler on the list. No, it is not Penny. I know I'm playing Penny right here, but that's because I can't play Serge. I've been recording for hours, and I just can't play Serge because he's either played or banned out, which I just find strange because Serge definitely is dropping in my meta tier list. I feel like, again, this could be another B tier brawler because I'm just not seeing Serge as much anymore. I'm finding that, well, definitely in ranked, people are drafting him just too early on, which leads him to get counted. Even when he was an S tier brawler, you couldn't really play him that early on in the draft a lot of the time, especially on a map like this, like where throws are so dominant. You know, the map can get opened up easily. That's not where Serge thrives. He needs to get his first level, and he thrives more as like a counter pick when there's more aggro brawlers, when there's a lot of grass, so you can easily sneak up and farm your first level. That's where you start to see Serge. When you start to pick Serge, just no matter what is where things go wrong in the draft. You can't just play Serge no matter what in Brawl Stars anymore. Since the HP nerf, I'm just seeing a lot less value with him. Before, you could just hard carry and go in and just get the kill no matter what. You now have to be more calculated. You can't charge your hype charge as easily as you could before. The meta around him has changed as well. Like, there's a lot of more pokey brawlers, like Janet, for example, returning to the meta. You've got Penny, an S tier brawler in the meta, of course, being really good into Serge, especially in those game modes where he's good on, like Gem Grab, Brawl Ball, Hot Zone. You see a lot more Penny, for example. Throwers are really good in draft, again, for example. So there's just a lot to counter Serge right now. Again, I still think he's a good brawler. He's definitely a pop-off brawler, but you need the right map. You know, for example, like double swoosh, you need a little bit of grass like Sneaky Field. But even Sneaky Fields, like good players and disciplined players, can actually do a lot to him. So let's pop down his hype charge now. Hopefully the Brock doesn't destroy it, but it doesn't matter because these guys are just leaving a wide open goal and we could just score easily. So yeah, I think Serge, good brawler. I think, again, maybe I overrated him and still thought he would be like this insane brawler. I think most of the time, I think it's because the average random just draft him too early on, and you just can't do that. So maybe he's overrated for randoms, but he is even overrated maybe in pro play as well. So that's going to be the last overrated brawler. Let's hop into underrated now. All right, guys, now we're going to be jumping into the underrated brawlers, starting off with Melody. So I know Melody is going to be a little bit underrated in the meta, mainly because she's more of a high skill cap player, or a player, well, a brawler that needs a little bit more patience. So we've seen what good players can do with Melody, especially in the World Finals, like Side Tampa, for example. But I think, even myself included, I think I was discrediting her a little bit. She's got a really good place in the meta right now, especially against these squishier brawlers like Gus, for example. Well, not Gus isn't squishy, Snipers, for example, on those long range maps. Melody's really good. You just got to know more so of the tech. You got to time your gadgets well, and you got to get really good value out of the hypercharge. I think really disciplined Melodies can just make such a good impact in the meta. After watching some Match Arena tournaments recently, after as well looking at some APAC scrims, I'm seeing a lot of EMEA and APAC liking a lot of Melodies. So yeah, I think she's definitely underrated. I think myself, I kind of struggle a lot of times to get the most value out of Melody because, again, I'm not like Side Tampa or anything, am I? So it's always pretty hard to get the most value out of her. So we've got the Brock pinned back. I want to try and at least sustain some pressure, but unfortunately I couldn't. I'm one shot away from super here. Again, to get the most value, you want to make sure that you got all your notes before you dash in. I mean, technically your notes will deal more damage if you get them after the hypercharge, but I'd rather guarantee that massive shield that you can get. So good pull from our Gene. I'm actually just going to hypercharge in now. Go for the gadget. It wasn't the best. You see what I mean? Like, you've got to make sure that you get in. I just rushed that hypercharge. I knew that I could get a kill, but I definitely rushed it. As always, I can never actually get the perfect game when I want to in the recording. But again, we've still got some gadgets left here. We can use this to our advantage. Try and go in. I mean, the Piper just goes in and cleans up anyway. I mean, good job my teammates were actually able to clean up after I go in most of the time. But most of the time, you can just find a good isolated incident to make Melody work on those long range maps. Of course, Melody's insane in Heist. She's really good in Hot Zone. As long as you're banning out the likes of Lou, I don't think even Lou, like Melody can actually escape a lot of Lou supers and hypercharges, etc. So I think a lot of times it is a skill difference. I think she's absolutely A tier, maybe even pushing towards the top of the A tier now after seeing recent tournaments. Let's jump into the next one. Guys, so moving on to our second underrated brawler on the list, I have gone for Kenji. So I know a lot of the time when brawlers are nerfed, often they are a little bit underrated. Sometimes people just forget about them. They just kind of presume that they're not good in the meta anymore. Well, Kenji kind of is an example because I just don't see him whatsoever when it comes down to ranked. I see him a fair bit in competitive, but I even think the pros are underrating Kenji. There's a lot of use case for him. Again, there's always like a couple of really like low DPS brawlers in the meta, and I think Kenji's like really good into them. So unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, fortunately, he is going the power shield, so I was able to, I mean, not power shield, power surge, so I was able to win that interaction. So I can actually, I mean, still somewhat win this interaction here. If we go like, oh, come on. Okay, I just don't have brain cells apparently. But Serge is a bad matchup for Kenji anyways. But yeah, as I was saying, I just think Kenji's kind of been forgotten about. There's still like a use case for him in the meta 100%. Like he's still got a really strong gadget. His super is just really good to connects onto people and just chain as well with like the healing. Just everything about him, just really good in the meta. So okay, I've got to find a way to break out of this. I'm getting pinched by the Serge so much. So you know what to do, Spen. If you're facing a bad matchup, just switch lane. You know, I get angry at my randoms for not doing that. So now we're in a bit of a bad situation, but I can use this Lou super and just a presence in the grass here. Again, we're going to use super hits to try and chain. Nice. We're just going to rush into Gustus to get some more super charge rate. Gus actually does a lot of damage, so we've got to be careful. I'm actually going to juke that shot there. And again, should be able to get the Eve. I'm going to follow this Eve actually, just confirm the kill for my team. And again, I'm actually just going to go for this Gus super when I know they're about to shoot me. Pop my gadget, go for another super on this Serge. I think we're good. Like I just did so much work there. I really had to lock in for it though. But now we have a Lou hypercharge. I think we're doing fantastic. I'm now out of gadgets though, which is unfortunate. But now I can just stop going towards the mid. Oh, that's a lot of value right there. We're going to use super and hopefully confirm the kill onto Gus. There we go. It's just Serge left. Just the Eve left who's literally one shot. And we've got a Lou hypercharge. This has to be the game, surely. Again, I kind of cooked pretty slowly in the first little bits. But once I just recognized just to go away from my hard counter, we cooked, okay? We cooked. And look, I got stop play. I got so much pressure for my team. He's just definitely underrated. I just think he's underrated in a lot of scenarios. I think the only reason to stay away from Kenji is maybe bushier maps, because then you might just get like beaten a 1v1 by tanks or just DPS brawlers. But outside of that, I think he's just a great counter pick option and just really underrated. All right, guys, so jumping into the final underrated brawler on my list, I'm going to go with Gray. So I just think he's criminally underrated, mainly because of his hypercharge and the star power, which people don't fully understand. Even myself, I was confused until like a week or so ago when I found out that Gray's star power makes it so you actually heal more from like the 1300 that they say. So you would think like it would just heal that throughout 1300, but it's actually at a percentage of that brawler's health. So for tanks, they can heal up to like 3k nearly, which is again insane. And that is why Gray's so good paired with tanks, because he can just heal them up and get much more value out of it. It's like Kit, for example, is the same mechanic with Kit. Kit is actually better with tanks because Kit heals tanks for more. So it's the same with this Grey Star power. You see, probably early game we're going to struggle here until we start to get a hypercharge, but still we're not even struggling that much. Gray and Poco and Draco is just absolutely destroying these guys already. And again, with the hypercharge, it is very, very good for the extra shield. You just constantly abuse the extra shield over and over again. I'm going to wait for this Sandy to go down. I think we should be able to get some Mortis here. Nice. And that Mortis messed up. I know he's about to get a hypercharge and probably eat us alive, but again, let's wait for him to get a shot. Oh, come on, that was literally so close to get the hypercharge shot off them. And we're going to go for a hypercharge like right here, and then just running at him. I mean, we completely failed that, but you want to put the hypercharge maybe in like 2 different positions so you can keep like going back and forth between both of the portals. Okay, it's going to get a little bit dicey here. But thankfully Mortis has been messing up a lot. But again, I've not really been doing too much. They just can't deal with the amount of aggression and the amount of healing with our grey teleports, with our Poco heals and everything going on. So again, let's just keep going through the teleports and just creating absolute carnage. I mean, we could just go through this one again. I mean, like, look at this. I really did not cook whatsoever. But great. I just find it's criminally underrated. Of course, it's really good in hot zone, really good paired with tanks in like gem grab, really good knockout, bounty as a standalone brawler to counter those throwers with the hook gadget. And then once you get your super, you can counter a lot of snipers as well. So I just think it's criminally underrated. A lot of the time, it just comes down to whether you're a good grey or not. Me myself, I'm not good, but I've seen a lot of pros cook with him, and I just feel like there's a lot of untouched potential in terms of strategy with tanks and everything else, and the hypercharge as well, what people haven't fully grasped. So I think it's criminally underrated. Let me know who you think is overrated and underrated in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.